Hello out there to all you wonderful people. In a lot of my videos, I like to slam the Chinese Communist Party for being, for what I believe to be the most central figure in all of the world's problems. I think that they are far and away the most pernicious and evil entity at work today in the world, and I think by the end of this video, I'll be able to explain why I hold them in such disgusting regard. I'm not talking about the Chinese people. The Chinese people have to deal with communism, and that is a fate worse than death, in my opinion. And my ire is directed straightly at Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. Don't get it twisted. Chinese people are fine. I love your food. It's the greatest food, the best food. Everybody agrees. No, there's a special place in hell for all Communist Party officials. Not since the fall of the USSR, or you could even say the Hitler's Third Reich, has there been such an evil group of people. And yeah, it all stems from the fact that they are putting people in concentration camps. Not just people based on their religious belief and their racial designation. Uyghur Muslims is probably a group of people you haven't heard about unless you are as nuts deep in the news as I am, but stick around for the video because we're going to describe what despicable shit they're actually doing. So, according to this Guardian article, China has built 380 internment camps in Xinjiang. That is the province in which they built all of these camps. It was annexed, and the people that were native to the land were Uyghur Muslims, a type of Muslim, and yeah, they're putting these, China likes to call them re-education camps, but in all honesty, they are work camps and in some cases death camps. So, yeah, and that's happening in the year of our Lord, 2020. This is when the article is from. There's a couple other articles in here as well that I'll be referencing that are from no later than the second half of 2019, but this practice has been going on for years at this point. There's no finite time frame when this took place. But it's been going on for years at this point, and people need to be made very clear of what horrific shit has been going on. So, China has built nearly 400 internment camps in Xinjiang region, with construction on dozens continuing over the last 2 years, even as Chinese authorities said their re-education system was winding down, an Australian think tank has found. The network of camps in China's far west used to detain Uyghurs and people of other Muslim minorities, including 14 that are still under construction, according to the latest satellite imaging obtained by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. In total, the ASPI identified 380 detention centers established across the region since 2017, ranging from lowest security re-education camps to fortified prisons. So we have a map here detailing where you can find all of these concentration camps. As you can see, right over there in the most recent annexed province of China itself, and then more detailed in here throughout the entire region. Now, those of you who've been through high school realize that this picture here might ring a little bit familiar. If you've done your World War II history, you'll realize that looks an awful lot like a certain type of aerial photo that was taken in a place called Auschwitz. I don't know. Yeah. Looks familiar. Beijing insists there are no human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Chinese authorities initially denied the existence of internment camps, then later described them as vocational training and re-education programs that aim to alleviate poverty and counter terrorism threats. Oh, really? Well, guess what? I have some more articles. We can detail what kind of re-education they're actually doing, or vocational training, as they like to say. Data leak reveals how China brainwashes Uyghurs in prison camps. Oh, I thought it was just vocational training. The Chinese government has consistently claimed that camps in the far western Xinjiang region offer voluntary education and training. There's nothing voluntary about this. If you look like a Uyghur Muslim, you are rounded up and thrown into these death camps. But official documents seen by BBC Panorama show how inmates are locked up, indoctrinated, and punished. China's UK ambassador dismissed the documents as fake news. Of course, because that's what happens in communist regimes. If they don't agree with what you're putting out there, and you're not supposed to be putting anything out there to begin with, they control everything. There is nothing ideal about communism whatsoever. The leak was made to the Internal Consortium of Investigative Journalism, which has worked with 17 media partners, including BBC Panorama and The Guardian newspaper in the UK. The investigation has found new evidence which undermines Beijing's claims that the detention camps, which have been built across Xinjiang in the past 3 years, are for voluntary re-education purposes to counter extremism. About 1 million people, mostly from the Muslim Uyghur community, are thought to have been detained without trial. The leaked Chinese government documents, which the ICIJ have labeled the Chinese cables, include a 9-page memo sent out in 2017 by Zhu Hailun, then Deputy Secretary of Xinjiang's Communist Party and the region's top security official, to those who run the camp. The instructions make it clear that the camps should be run as high-security prisons with strict discipline, punishment, and no escapes. The memo includes orders to never allow escapes, increase discipline and punishment of behavioral violations, promote repentance and confession, struggle sessions, by the way, which I detailed before, make remedial Mandarin studies the top priority, encourage students to truly transform, submit to the brainwashing, ensure full video surveillance coverage of dormitories and classrooms free of blind spots. Yeah, does that sound like voluntary vocational training? Or does that sound like concentration camps? I'll let you choose. All right, and then the memo continues to say, the memo details how detainees will only be released when they can demonstrate they have transformed their behavior, beliefs, and languages, promote the repentance and confession of the students for them to understand deeply the illegal, criminal, and dangerous nature of their past activities. So just free expression of religion. That's exactly what they mean. They mean that you have suppressed that and have submitted wholeheartedly to the Chinese Communist Party. For those who harbor vague understandings, negative attitudes, or even feelings of resistance, carry out education transformation to ensure that results are achieved. That's called beating. That's called much more heinous activities, which we will detail, unfortunately, in more detail here very shortly. Ben Emerson QC, a lead human rights lawyer and an advisor to the World Uyghur Congress, said the camps were trying to change people's identity. It is very difficult to view that as anything other than a mass brainwashing scheme designed and directed at an entire ethnic community. Yeah, exactly. I thought they said never again in 1945. I thought that's what it was supposed to be. But no, this is 2020 and we are dealing with the exact same situation. It's a total transformation that is designed specifically to wipe out Muslim Uyghurs of Xinjiang as a separate cultural group off the face of the earth. And you think it's just going to stay in the Xinjiang province? You think if China has their way, they aren't going to institute this type of policy throughout the rest of the world? Do you think that it's just going to stop with Uyghur Muslims? No, of course not. This is what communists do. They are never satisfied with just defining one group as the oppressors. It eventually extrapolates out, and then you find yourself in a concentration camp one day for just being white or just being straight. And guess what? You will have nothing to say about it because the Communist Party of whatever country takes over owns you completely, 100%. Every source of expression is monitored very closely by communists. If you have the gall, if you have the audacity to claim that in free Western countries like Canada, the US, the UK, even most of the European Union countries, you think that you're so oppressed by everything, try being a Uyghur Muslim in one of these camps and see how free you are. This stuff gets me very riled up, as you can probably tell. And of course, you try to speak out about it. Xinjiang. China defends education camps. Beijing has come under fire for a network of detention centers which mostly house Muslim minorities. But a new document says millions of workers have been benefited from education and vocational training. You will not get any support from anyone out there. The US has likened the center to concentration camps. Absolutely they have, and for good reason. It has placed sanctions on Chinese politicians allegedly involved, and earlier this week blocked some exports it said had been made with forced labor. We'll get to that. A new Chinese government white paper, however, says vocational training is increasing job opportunities and combating poverty. Xinjiang has built a large knowledge-based, skilled, and innovative workforce that meets the requirements of the area, the report reads. It says the training provided includes written and spoken Mandarin, labor skills, and knowledge of urban life. The report says from rural areas have started their own businesses or got jobs in factories after receiving state support. You think the government is the way to solve any problem? Do you think that more government has actually ever been the solution to any problems out there? No. This is the logical conclusion of communism. Do you think the gulags in the USSR were anything different than this? Do you think that those weren't just rock-breaking camps? You don't think that millions and millions of people have died? Mao's Cultural Revolution, somewhere between 60 and 100 million, 100 plus million people died from communism. And that was just one leader. And now Xi Jinping is running these fucking death camps. You know what they do over there? US seizes items thought to be made from hair of Muslims in Chinese labor camps. Yeah, they're harvesting hair off of Muslims. These Uyghur Muslims. You know what else they're doing? Rape, medical experiments, and forced abortions. One woman describes horrors of Xinjiang concentration camps. Think this shit's a game? You think I don't have a legitimate reason for calling out LeBron James for not having to have the backbone to stand up to his Chinese overlords? He won't make a single statement on the horrors that these people face. Unfortunately, we got to read through this article because I got to drill this into anybody who has any doubts that communism is the way, that socialism doesn't eventually lead to these practices being carried out. In a disturbing feature by David Stavro of Haaretz, probably pronouncing that correctly, Saragul Sayud Bey, a Muslim woman, sorry lady, we'll call you Sarah Bey, if I have to read your name again. I'm not trying to minimize the horrors in which have been visited upon you. A woman of Kazakh descent describes her detention in one of Xinjiang, Canada. Oh God, I hope never. China's notorious re-education camps. Bey, who said she was brought in to teach Chinese and communist propaganda to the other prisoners, said she witnessed inhuman atrocities before being granted asylum in Sweden. Before Bey's detention, her husband and 2 children were able to escape from their homes across the border with Kazakhstan. But Bey, who said her passport had been confiscated, was unable to join them, and in 2017, she was taken to a re-education camp. She had no idea where it was located, she told Haaretz. They would punish inmates for everything. Kazakhs are just one of the Turkic Muslim ethnic minorities detained in labor camps in Xinjiang, China. Recently, the plight of ethnic Uyghurs in this part of China has gained international attention. Not enough, in my opinion. You barely fucking hear about this shit. With reports of organ harvesting. Oh, we will get to that because that's a real thing. Coming to light in the meeting of the UN Human Rights Council in September. You know, we'll just touch on that right now. China forcefully harvests organs from detainees, tribunal concludes. China organ transplant made is worth $1 billion a year, according to a tribunal. This story contains details that some may find distressing. You should. If you have a fucking soul, if you have a pair of eyes, if you are listening to this right now, it is very disturbing. The organs of members of marginalized groups detained in Chinese prison camps are being forcefully harvested, sometimes when patients are still alive, an international tribunal sitting in London has concluded. Some of the more than 1.5 million detainees in Chinese prison camps are being killed for their organs to serve a booming transplant trade that is worth some $1 billion a year, concluded the Chinese tribunal, an independent body tasked with investigating organ harvesting from prisoners. of conscience in the authoritarian state. Forced organ harvesting has been committed for years throughout China on a significant scale. The tribunal concluded in its final judgment Monday the practice of unmatched wickedness on the death for death basis, with the killings by mass crimes committed in the last century, it added. In 2014, state media reported that China would phase out its practice. 2014, hey? And in 2017, we just learned earlier that they were still building more camps, and they still are to this day, of taking organs from executed prisoners, and said it would rely on a national organ donation system. The Chinese military Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Tuesday said not immediately available to comment on the tribunal's findings. Of course, they haven't concocted a convincing enough lie yet. In a statement released alongside the final judgment, the tribunal said many of these affected were practitioners of the Falun Gong, a spiritual discipline that China banned in the 1990s and has called an evil cult. The tribunal added that it was possible that Uyghur Muslims, an ethnic minority who are currently being detained in vast numbers in western China, were also being targeted. The tribunal is chaired by Sir Jeffrey Nice, who worked as a prosecutor for the International Tribunal for Crimes Committed in the former Yugoslavia. The tribunal concluded that beyond a reasonable doubt, the crimes against humanity had been committed against the Falun Gong and Uyghur Muslims, but it could not prove that the killing of the Falun Gong amounted to genocide. Now, just because it doesn't amount to genocide doesn't make it any less fucking evil. Because of the tribunal's inability to prove intent to commit genocide, useless. Fucking useless. Honestly. A statement accompanying the final judgment, the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China called on the international community to help bring an end to forced organ extraction. Absolutely. And that's why every time that President Trump signs an executive order that directly affects China, I cheer for hours. Not literally, you dumb motherfuckers. I'm not that big of a bootlicker. We'll get back to the more pointed article here. South Bay also described horrific conditions during her detention, including inadequate healthcare, crowding, and almost non-existent hygiene. Prisoners who were observant Muslims were forced to eat pork, a food that's considered haram or forbidden in Islam. They would punish inmates for everything, South Bay told Stavro through an interpreter. Anyone who didn't follow these rules was punished. Those who didn't learn Chinese properly or didn't sing the songs were also punished, she said. Songs to praise the Chinese Communist Party, the only ones that are allowed in China. Punishments could be anything from being deprived of food to having one's fingernails ripped out, or worse. Medical experiments, forced contraception, and worse. Here's where it gets disturbing, people. South Bay describes being forced to witness a gang rape while at the camp. A young woman, she says, was forced to disrobe and being forced to confess for her sins in front of around 200 prisoners. The young woman was then raped by several police officers, South Bay said. While they were raping her, they checked to see how they were reacting. People who turned their heads or closed their eyes and those who looked angry or shocked were taken away, and we never saw them again. There were also medical experiments performed on the prisoners, according to Haaretz. They were forced to take pills and were given shots, and they were not told the truth about what the medical procedures did. Some were subjected to them report impotence and cognitive decline, according to reports in Haaretz and The Believer. I can't even make any jokes right now. Forced abortions and contraceptives have also been reported in the Washington Post and Haaretz. Women were forcefully fitted with intrauterine devices, and Rick Parat, a 31-year-old Uyghur student of Islamic studies, is one of the several women who reported to being forced to have an abortion while in camps. Parat told the Post she was repeatedly raped by Chinese guards. She twice found herself pregnant and had the pregnancies forcibly terminated. The Chinese government, which has detained more than 1 million members of ethnic minorities, mostly Uyghurs, according to Reuters, in internment camps in recent years, had told the media outlets that reports of atrocities are untrue. and that the prisoner camps are educational and vocational centers meant to help the state counter terrorism. The only terrorism that's happening is what is happening inside these camps. Earlier this year, Chinese officials said that the majority of detained in the Xinjiang had been released. However, the U.S. State Department and the Pentagon released a statement saying they were unable to verify the vague claims, and experts remain doubtful, the New York Times reported. Here's the last pitiful response. Several majority Muslim countries, including Saudi Arabia, defended Chinese methods in a letter in July. Yeah, this video sucked. It was heavy. But I think it's very important that you guys know this. I think it's important to understand that the Chinese Communist Party does not stand for human rights. It does not stand for fair treatment. It does not stand for anything but the Chinese Communist Party. If you think, oh, I like socialism just because I like universal health care, I just like the state to look after its citizens, this is eventually what it leads to. Don't get it twisted. These values are harbored, and then they eventually blossom into a full-blown communist regime with one-party rule, and you have no way to speak out about it because all communications that go outside of the country are censored and controlled by the one Communist Party. God is ripped out, individualism is ripped out, freedom is ripped out, and you are left as nothing but a husk, a worker for the great Communist Party of your choosing. I will never say anything glowing about communism. I will never, ever give in to socialism, and I will drag anyone who refuses to stand up to this level of atrocity. Sorry if you were disturbed by the content of this video, but it's easily the hardest video I've ever had to record. But more people need to know about this. And I hope this video gets out there. And I hope you guys stick around because this isn't going to be the only video I do on the sick and depraved actions of the Chinese Communist Party. Because they have their tentacles in everything, people. They own massive stakes in a bunch of different companies that are international. And they can turn on civil war. They can turn on a world war without firing a single shot. And you better fucking believe it. And be ready for it too. So marshal your arguments. Tell the truth. And get your thoughts in order. I thank you all for the gift of your time. And hopefully you stick around for some more videos. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. And drop a like on this video if you think communism is a special type of evil and all the practitioners deserve a special ring in hell. That'll do it for today, guys. I greatly appreciate you, and we've ran the gamut here today, and hopefully there's something out there for you. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.